Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Drop-In Morning Show with the Teach Better team, where we are live every single morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern. We have a whole lot in store. It is Tuesday, January 11th. Traniece is here. We have a good theme this week. We got a good news story, and I can only imagine the fun that we're going to have. So please, I know it's bright and early as we're getting started. Fill up your coffee, get ready for the show, and we will be right back. It's Tuesday, January 11th. Traniece is here with us. Good morning. How are you feeling this morning?
Oh, man. Good morning. I'm feeling good. A little tired with the time difference, but I'm ready to rock and roll.
No, tired. Yes, you are allowed to be tired. I know it's so bright and early. And tell us, what time zone are you on? Because we all need to have a moment of like love and appreciation for you.
I am on the Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah.
So it is currently 4:01 in the morning. It's awesome.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. And that's the funny part, because when we come live, obviously we report everything in Eastern time zone. That's where the Teach Better team is located. But I'm in Central time zone. So it's 6 a.m. for me. You're in Pacific. It's 4 a.m. for you. Let's just put it this way, friends. It's really early. That's all that matters.
Definitely. But the best part is I get to go back to sleep for a good another 1-2 hours and then, get the day started. So this is a great way to jumpstart my day.
Okay, that's the best news ever. I'm thrilled to hear that. So you get to start it with us and take a little nap.
Definitely.
And then head into your day.
Head into the day. I mean, when Teach Better pours into you, you got to pour into Teach Better. That's what it's all about, right?
I just think it's so funny because I know I'm going to have you introduce yourself in a second, but so many of our network already knows who you are. We just Googled about you the other day because you were on 12-Hour Live last time we did it. We just announced our 12-Hour Live date. And so many people just were so excited you were coming live. And then when I saw you were Pacific time zone, I'm like, oh, if only they knew how early it was to ask Traniece to come on Daily Drop-In. Oh my goodness. Tell us a little about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Kind of all that stuff in case we have some new listeners this morning.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I am Traniece Brown Warrens, and I am now an middle school assistant principal in Portland, Oregon. I am also a doctoral student at Baylor University, BU. And what else? Man, right now I'm an assistant basketball coach for a varsity team. Our team is really solid. I wrapped up football season. I was the head football coach. I'm also working on some educational policy. I'm just in my groove. It sounds like a lot, but the one thing I learned is when you operate in your purpose, nothing is a lot. Everything kind of aligns with itself and you're able to flourish and really do your thing.
Oh, I love your mentality on staying quote unquote busy. When people ask all the time, oh my gosh, how do you juggle all these pieces? Some of the things that I always talk about is I'm like, well, my calendar is full of things I really like. When your calendar is full of really stressful, overwhelming tasks, then of course it feels like you're juggling a lot and it's really heavy. But when you really do enjoy everything on your calendar, or the majority of things on your calendar, it does make a huge difference on the weight that you carry.
Definitely. And that's, as educators, we have to keep that in mind. If you're doing something that is stressing you out, then it is not for you. You need to rethink maybe how you're doing it, why you're doing it, or who you're doing it for. Because if those things aren't aligned to your core and to your purpose, then that's the reason why you're stressed out.
I wonder if we can challenge everybody. Kind of on the show, sometimes we like to throw out challenges that don't take too long. They're really specific. And then we'd love to hear what our network thinks. I'd love to have everybody go through their calendar today, hour by hour, half an hour by half an hour, whatever makes sense for you, and do a plus sign, meaning that you really, really love this activity and you're really excited for this one thing on your calendar.
Right.
Maybe a neutral sign, you could go either way. You're indifferent on the activity, and then a negative, no, this is going to weigh on me. I'm a little anxious about this, or I have a negative feeling about it. And really, if you're a teacher, you kind of have to do this class hour by class hour too. Count all the meetings, count all the transitions, Like, I'd love to see us do that, because you're right. If you have more neutrals or negatives than positives, of course, that's why you're stressed.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to that challenge, because some of the
Please.
things we can't change. So as an AP, I wish I could change discipline. I wish those negatives in my calendar would go away. But the reality is, it's part of the job. So some of the things that you have negatives by, I would challenge you to ask yourself, why is that a negative? And how can you change your perspective if it's something you cannot change, like lesson planning? We can't change lesson planning, right? Because if you changed it and you just show up to class and just, whoo, I mean, what impact is that going to have, right? So now what I do is I look at, all right, so discipline. I don't really like discipline that much because I don't like to issue out consequences. I now change it into teachable moments. Now I'm like, you know what? This is my one opportunity to sit down with a kid who's struggling and is calling out for help. And I get to say, all right, what's going on? And so now I'm like, oh, this might be tough. I'm gonna have to make a really tough decision, but at least I'm doing what's important, because the kid is acting out for a reason. Somebody has to be able to hear that student where they are to be able to take them where we want to see them be at our campus. And so that's kind of the things I do want to challenge, because some things don't go away at all.
I love
It's
that
the reality
reminder.
of education. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, if you're looking at those negatives or even the neutrals, the mindset shift can be huge to change that one activity. But also, if you see a lot of things you can change, like that gives you the power to go do that. Maybe it's your morning routine. You're really not feeling how you spend that first hour of your day, or maybe it's in the evening, like you're anxious about something going on tonight. Do you have control after work to change, not maybe your perspective, but maybe change the activity on your calendar,
Right.
alter that. And when I say calendar, friends, I really mean like from the time you're awake to the time you go to bed. I'm not just talking about maybe your block of 8 hours that you might head to work today. So I like this, Traniece. I'm going to do this myself today. I got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, me too. I think I'm gonna do the same thing. Like, is this a negative or positive? Like, is it in my locus of control?
But don't you also think that, like, even just naming it sometimes is enough? Like, even just acknowledging, okay, this meeting is a positive, and I don't know that I saw it as much of anything when I got started. So naming it can really be impactful too.
Yeah, because it does something to your brain. It has your brain say, oh, wait, I do have the skill set to do that, instead of, oh, man, right? And so this is where you see all those Twitter blogs and Instagram blogs that say, I get to do this, right? So you only get to do something when you name it what it is. If you don't name it, then it's like, oh, I have to do this. And it's a drag. But when you name it, you say, oh, man, I get to meet with this person today, or I get to hear this opportunity today. And it just does something totally different to your brain. It's like a shot of coffee.
It is. Traniece, I know you're really active on Twitter. Are you on other social medias as well you consider yourself active on?
No, Twitter is enough for me.
Okay.
That's
so
it.
For all of you, we'd love to hear your reflection. Just a quick time today. If you get a few moments, you do this activity, make sure you head on to Twitter, tag Traniece and I, maybe the Teach Better team too, so we can amplify your voice. We'd love to hear kind of how this activity goes for you. It seems like something that can be kind of quick, as long as you're willing to commit a few moments today, maybe a little brain break as you get your day started. Traniece, I see Dave Schmitto commenting, and I know that we originally connected by you being an active member in the Administrator Mastermind. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got connected to the team? Like, where did you come from? How did we all become friends?
Twitter. Twitter. Dave says some provocative things, and I was like, wait a minute, I think the same way, and he's able to say it. Who is this guy? Really, that's how it started. And then I joined the team. I haven't been there in so long because I do bus duty. And there was the last time I was there, I was actually I got the opportunity to ride the bus with my students because they needed extra love and support from Miss Brown on the way home. And Dave was like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, funny thing. I had to ride the bus because, I want my kids to go home safe. And I need them to understand I will support you any way your behavior says you need to be supported. And if that means I have to ride the bus, because it is very important that our bus drivers show up. And if we don't show up for our bus drivers, they will not show up for us. Let's just remember that. So sometimes you might have to ride the bus. And my principal definitely supported that and then picked me up afterwards because they don't bring you back. But that's how I got connected. And it's been a great space, a great opportunity to have a community of administrators who think the same way as you, because sometimes as teachers, we felt like isolation. Administration, it's a lot more, because you can't have that same level of conversation with your teachers. You will lose respect. And you don't want to talk bad about anybody. That's just not cool. So this is a space where I'm able to throw an idea out before I implement it, because I am really quick. I'll be like, oh, that's a good idea. Throw it out there. Now I'm learning, wait, I should probably hear this out and hear some other people fishbowl this thing. And so that's how I got connected to that, because I was looking for a space to grow before I got into the position that I'm in now.
Oh, it's so awesome. Yeah, shout out to Dr. Dave Schmidt on the Teach Better team. We love all the work he does. And he truly really have taken that mastermind program and evolved it into something so powerful for any administrative leaders in our community. If you're ever interested, head to teachbetter.com/mastermind. It's a free mastermind group. And Traniece, you kind of emphasized, and that's kind of one of the things I love. I don't know why I have so much passion for this one element of the mastermind, but I love that you can kind of come and go as you please. It's not something you have to commit to every single week. If you have a conflict, you shouldn't feel shame about not showing up. It's good. Come when you can. And the community really doesn't think twice about it, welcomes you in whenever you're able to be there. I just think that's such a beautiful characteristic that Dave really, really wanted to emphasize in that group. And I know Dave's actually been traveling a bunch, so we've had a number of different leaders supporting that mastermind, but Dave was really the first one to get that up and going. So I love his work. So good. So good.
Awesome.
Oh, so fun. Traniece, we have so many different things that we get to do on Daily Drop-In. So we're going to transition here. It's Tuesday morning. So we typically on Tuesdays and Thursdays start with our Brainstorm Bank. So we're going to head into our Brainstorm Bank and get talk and chop a little bit more about your role, education, maybe talk about these bus drivers. There's some comments really sharing their appreciation for your perspective on that. So we'll be right back.
Yeah. All right.
Hey friends, good morning. Welcome back to Daily Drop-In. We are in our Brainstorm Bank segment, and I will tell you, this is always one of my favorite segments of the show, because this is our time to purposely pause and say, hey friends, it's Tuesday, January 11th. Is there anything we can do to help you? Do you need anything? And so while there is a theme every single week, there is so many things that we love to discuss in this segment. Of course, if you have questions, whether it be specific questions for our guest or just questions that you're brainstorming that you'd love a buddy on, that's why we're here. Traniece and I can't promise that we'll have the answer for you, but we're happy to be a brainstorm partner in your exploration. So please let us know. Traniece, tell me a little bit about why you wanted to become an administrator, because I have to tell you right now, I know that teachers have it hard. We're in the trenches. I literally, this has already been a challenging start of the year for so many educators. I think principals and assistant principals and leadership have a pretty rough time right now too, and it's not really being discussed.
Let's see. Leadership has always been me. So when I was a teacher, I never saw myself becoming a leader. I really got into education because I wanted to be a school counselor. I wanted to be that person that was for students what I didn't have in school, which is the reason why I have a lot of student loan debt, because I simply lacked the knowledge. And so that was my quest. I was on my way of doing that. I lived in Houston, Texas, and I was a teacher there. And then all of a sudden, I had mentors that were like, try this opportunity, do this. And the next thing you know, I look up and I'm at a crossroads in my career and I needed a new certification. And the question was, do I go get the school counselor certification? Do I get the administrative? Both were the same amount of time, the same amount of money. And one was my dream and one was something I never saw myself doing. But as I looked at the trajectory of my career and the impact I was having, not just for my students in my classroom, but for the campus, I chose administration, because influence on a bigger scale takes a bigger heart. It was one thing to touch my kids and see them grow. But then when I had teachers coming into my room asking me questions, and then I had district level people coming into my room. And then they were like, hey, can we send someone to your classroom to see you do this? And then afterwards, I always took the time to debrief, because teachers get thrown into classrooms. Go watch this teacher teach. And then they walk away thinking, oh, I have to do it like her. And I was like, wait, I am one in a million. We all have a different fingerprint. And so I will always take the time to sit down and say, okay, what elements did you like? Now, what is your style and how can you implement that? Then the next thing you know, more opportunities came about. I moved to Portland, Oregon in 2020. I know, crazy. In the middle of a pandemic, I picked up my life, drove across the country, and came to Portland. And I lived out what I thought was my dream as a school counselor. And then I realized that wasn't my dream anymore. And so I let go of that and I moved into the next one, which has been administration. So now I'm an assistant principal. So that's kind of what happened. So opportunities came. I said yes. 1 year, my one word was opportunity. I wanted to take any opportunity that came around. And so I set some goals. I set a vision. And now I'm here making an impact on a bigger scale.
Oh, so powerful. And it's interesting. You're doing all this over the last few years, and it's been quite a few years. What do you feel has been one of the most powerful elements of your work? Because truly, you sound so passionate. And even when we logged on before we came live, for everybody kind of here in the background, you said, hey, how are you? And I was like, oh, I'm good. And you're like, gosh, it's so weird to hear an educator say that they're good these days. Like, with everything that you're doing, what do you feel like has been maybe the most challenging part?
The challenging part. Embracing my new culture. So Houston and Portland are two different places. And sometimes we get stuck in what makes us successful. And so we try to bring that into a new place without understanding that place. And so the challenging part has been understanding the culture, because it's easy to say, oh, you're wrong because you do it like this. But if you don't take the time to understand why something is happening in this way, then you make really critical decisions that don't honor the people that you're there to serve. And so the challenging part has been learning the culture. Understanding the history of the city that I'm in, right? So I remember being a kid playing Oregon Trail. You don't think all these things until you get there, but these were pioneers, right? There's the settlers of Oregon were people who took a risk. They packed up their life and they said, we are heading west, and they settled on a land that no one knew about. So you cannot go in there talking to people as if they don't know anything just because you're a hot shot from Texas. You have to honor the history. And so taking a moment to slow down and say, wait, maybe Texas doesn't know everything. And it doesn't mean my experience isn't validated. It just means I need to learn how to curve it so that I can actually serve the people that hired me. I'm not there for me and my title. I'm there to be able to influence and touch the people that I need to touch and serve. And I can't do that if I don't honor them.
I think it's so interesting. You obviously had this massive experience and to reflect on in 2020, like, holy moly, that was such a decision. But that mindset of needing to accept and understand a culture is actually something that I think a lot of educators can relate to right now, because even if they haven't moved states, even if they haven't moved school districts or school buildings, some of our school buildings, most of them, I'm trying to not speak too generally, but truly I feel like all of them have had a shift in culture in their school building over the last few years. And so is there any of those life lessons that you may have taken while truly moving across the country that might actually relate to somebody who has been in the same building for the last 15 years, but is still struggling with this?
Yeah. This all comes down to being culturally relevant, right? So my dissertation topic is on being a culturally responsive school leader. It's important to know the culture in which you are operating in. And that culture, if you're like middle school, high school, the culture changes every class period, right? And so it's really taking the time to self-reflect on what's important to you and what do you value and what do other people value? Humanize the people around you. It gets so easy to see people and students as numbers. You see your teacher as a colleague, but humanize their experience. Have empathy. And so this summer, I took a course with Fuel Ed on empathy and learning what is my attachment style, what is my listening style, who am I? You have to take time to know who are you. And that's what being culturally relevant is also about, is that self-exploration and that self-awareness, so that you're able to understand why you're clashing or where the misunderstanding is. And so even inside of buildings, people don't take the time to become self-aware of who they are. You might realize, I'm the one that's changing, and I might need to increase my skill set. I might need to let go of some things that, we keep saying, oh, we've done that for years. Well, the pandemic has showed us that it might be time to let go of some of those things, because if they're not currently working right now, you might be working against yourself. Mm-hmm. And the best thing you can do is be self-aware and say, maybe this is no longer working, or maybe this is no longer a place for me. You don't have to be stuck. And that was hard for me. I loved my district. I didn't even see myself leaving Houston. But then I realized I might have outgrown a space. And that self-awareness that I might have outgrown a space gives you the power to move or change.
Traniece, I feel like this is a really difficult conversation, but our theme this week is actually about having bold conversations. So while there are so many bold conversations, I think people, when they hear bold conversations, can make assumptions about what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. I think a very bold conversation that you just really emphasize is this concept of knowing when it's time to move to something else. And it feels, to be honest, it feels very dirty talking about this on the show right now, because you're in no way advocating for people to move into education. I think education is one of the best jobs on the planet. It is terrible right now in terms of stress level for many, many people, but understanding when a shift, small or large, might be best for you to best serve your students is a very challenging conversation. Yeah. I would love to hear your perspective on maybe what people can look for or might want to consider, because moving to a different school building doesn't mean you're turning your back on anybody. This could really be an opportunity for you to be a better educator, because you are looking for something specific, and it might just, I love your perspective of like outgrowing a building, outgrowing a district. That is okay. We shouldn't feel shame about that. So tell me how this can be something that we provide some insight on.
So I'm going to talk about my teaching style, right? So when I was a teacher, I did hip hop history. So I infused hip hop with history so that my kids could learn. I just won a huge award from the state of Texas. It was amazing. And I changed schools. And so I came in, I was ready to conquer the world, right? I came in with my music. I was ready to go. I got awards, I got accolades, and I started teaching, and the room was silent. They all stared at me. And I was spending more time making the connection between the music and the content than I was teaching. That was my first indication it was time to change. If my purpose was to teach about colonization, right? And I had to spend more time about what the song was about and what my reference was about, then this was not the right song or reference. So that's number one. When you are at a place and you're spending too much time doing things outside of what you were there to do, it might be time to change something. If you're realizing that you're not getting the same level of results, it might be time to change something. So in Texas, we have the STAR exam. I needed my kids to pass. The culture of my campus was not music. Not at that point. I had to take time to build that. But what I did learn when I looked around the room was memes. All these kids could drop a meme in a heartbeat. Like, they were like, Miss, you seen this new meme? And I was like, no, I haven't. So I had to educate myself. I had to jump into their culture. They thought I was cool. I had no idea what they were talking about. Google helped me out, though. And so then I said, you know what? If this is what they're presenting to me, this is what I could use as a platform. So I transformed it from music to memes. Everything was a meme. And I remember one meme, we were talking about the colonists, so the American Revolution. And there was this meme of expectation versus reality, right? So this guy was like mowing the lawn, and he was expecting this old lady to give him a ton of money, and she ended up giving him a quarter. And we unpacked what that meme meant. And I was like, well, how would you feel? Like, what would you do if this is what happened? And that segued into the French and Indian War. So the colonists truly believed that King George was going to offer them a huge reward, because without the colonists, they would not have won the war. But really what they got was taxation. Now my kids could understand. So expectation versus reality. And so I say all of that to say, you have to look at what is your purpose and goal. What are the things you're currently doing? And is that getting you closer to that purpose and goal? Or is it taking the energy and time away from getting there? That's when I really believe, a shift needs to happen. And if you are driving to work every day, drained, there's some self-reflection you need to do to say, is this me? Put some interventions in place. And then at the end say, you know what? We've had a great run, but this probably is not the place or situation for me any longer. I need to go someplace that can continue to stimulate me, because we don't want burnout. Yeah. Burnout happens when you don't keep stimulating yourself. You keep doing the same thing over and over, you get burnt out.
I know that we're focusing on bold conversations, so I'm going to ask some very specific questions, even though I know this is, a little bit of a strange conversation to be advocating for. But okay, so I'm a teacher, I'm evaluating, or maybe I'm a leader. Like I'm in the education system. I'm evaluating all these pieces, and I make the decision. Yeah, you know what? Maybe my time has come. Maybe I need to make a change. And a change for an educator, regardless of their role, can look a lot of different ways. Change buildings, change districts, change states. Obviously, there's 1,000 factors to consider, right? Family, lifestyle, all these normal elements that we can go through. What do you think your biggest tip would be when we are thinking about some of the guilt we feel? Because I think regardless of what decision you make, even if you move next door or move grade levels, maybe stay within the same building, but you need to move grade levels. There's a lot of guilt that I've seen teachers carry for 100 different reasons. And a lot of it stems off of wanting a change, but feeling like they're letting someone down by choosing a change. Would you speak to that a little bit?
Ooh, boy,
I know it's heavy. It's hard. It's so hard.
I think being honest and putting that thought process inside of your changes, ideas, right? Like being honest, like that's upfront. And then challenging it by saying, okay, so then if I stay, what will I look like in 5 years? If I leave, what will I look like in 5 years, right? And so as a basketball coach, I get to have these types of conversations, right? So I have a player, I absolutely love her to death. And she was playing scared. I said, what are you afraid of? And she was like, well, I'm afraid of making mistakes. Okay, have you made one? And she was like, yeah. I said, the best thing about basketball is when you make a mistake offensively, you get back on defense and get that ball back, right? So here's what I have to tell educators. There's kids everywhere, but there's only one you. So the question comes in, how many kids do you want to positively impact? Or how many you do you think you can continue to multiply in spaces? You are valued and you are needed. And that space might not be for you anymore. And yes, you're going to have guilt. And yes, you're going to say, what about this person? But I can tell you on the other side of leaving, you always have those stories and memories that keeps you going for that next kid. So I have students that I'm dealing with right now, and I'm like, oh, I remember such and such. And if it was not for such and such, I wouldn't even know how to help you properly. And so, those are the things you have to consider is there's always kids. There's always another administrative team, but there's only one you. And if you burn yourself out and if you drag yourself down, you're not going to be any good for your family if you have one. You're not going to be any good for your passion because you're always tired and you're always going to have guilt of what if. And I live with no what ifs. If I have a what if, I'm just going to try it. Like, I didn't like it, right? You only have one life to live. And education is the one sector where you do feel so guilty. You feel as guilty as if you have kids. Like, oh, I got to leave my kids tonight. Yes, those are your students. Yes, you do have passion and love for them. But there's kids everywhere. Now, I will say this. Don't run just to run. You need to think about this. Because if you run just to run, you're still taking you with you. And this is where self-awareness and self-reflection comes in critical, and having a good team around you. You need people around you that say, and this is, I think, the part that's real critical. You need people to be honest with you. Because I know some people are like, oh, I'm going to go into administration, and they can't handle the stress of 50 kids in their room. How are you going to handle the stress of 300? So if you're at this place, you need to have a team to say, hey guys, here's what I'm considering, and have people that will be honest with you, very honest, and not just, feel your emotions, because feeling your emotions, you're going to land into a world of trouble, because administration is a different world. Going to a different school is a different world. And you need to know that you're prepared to do that. Even changing grade levels. Ooh, that's why I only stuck to one.
I know, it's funny. Elijah's in the comments saying he made a tough decision moving from general education to a reading interventionist position. Mm-hmm. And that is what we're talking about. We're not just talking about choosing to move across the country, which is an enormous decision, but choosing to make a change even within the building that you're in to a different position so that you can get something else that you're seeking to enjoy your role more. And Traniece, I think your focus on needing a village to help you make this decision is not only so timely, but so necessary. I know, I was just talking to an educator yesterday evening, that was struggling with this concept of making a hard decision of moving, not in a large way, but in a small way in their career. And these questions about how will you feel in 5 years if you don't make this change? How will you feel in 5 years if you do? And there's a business phrase that I stole from my father that I quote all the time that's really speaking to the issue. And one of I think the first things that educators need to do when they're seeking a change and they have fear or shame with making this decision is really understanding where that in and of itself is coming from. Why are you fearful? What are you scared of? Because the reality is there's a lot of jobs in education. And so if you, and that wasn't the case 10 years ago, but right now there are. So if you're making a change and you're fearful that you'll be unemployed because of this decision, if you don't like it, it's not really a reality right now, because there are open teaching positions. There are open positions that give you a little bit of a safety net, which again is just the culture of our field right this moment. So I love this, Trace. I would love to be able to invite people in our network to, if they're looking for a little bit of perspective, if they just need to talk stuff out in a safe space, I know they can always connect with you. I'd be more than willing to meet with anybody just to talk out with a third party that has no stakes in the game. Like, what are your thoughts? What are the things you're not thinking about? I mean, all of this is a part of even just to identify, Traniece, that you actually do like where you are and it is the right decision for you, right? Tell me about that.
Yes. Yeah. So that's also important too. So I was at another crossroad in my career and I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to jump into coaching. So as a former athlete, I think that that's very critical to have a coach. It's very critical. No matter who you are, we all need a coach. And so I was sitting at the table and these people were falling head over heels in love with me. And they were offering me so many things. One of them was training with gym night. Now, gym night, that's the heart right there. And I had gym night in front of me, right? They were like, we can do this. And I'm sitting there and they go, but we need you to start right now. And I was like, wait a minute. This is only January. I thought I was interviewing for a job next school year because that's when you start to do that. And I was like, wait, this doesn't feel right. I can't leave my kids in the middle of a year. That's not right. And so that was my initial thought, right? And I was like, this doesn't feel right. But then I was like, is this guilt or is this real? And I slept on it, right? So there's another tip, sleep on it. Your emotions will drive you down the wrong pathway. You just need a good night's sleep. Sleep on it. And if you wake up and you still have that same conviction, then that's something you want to explore. And so I went to sleep and I woke up and I go, I can't do that. I'm not ready to go. And I stayed. And that was actually my last year in the classroom. But I finished out that year because it just didn't feel right. And sometimes we have to be honest. Not all opportunities are meant for you, no matter how good they sound. Yeah. And this is where you have to have your moral compass and have what you value. Because if you don't have those two things, then you will get lured away by a shiny object and you will end up in a very miserable place.
Is it bad
because of that shiny object?
Yeah. Is it bad that sometimes I need more than just to sleep on it? Like I need like 7 days to think about some of these big changes. Like honestly, I will tell you, because there is a difference between like Monday to Tuesday. I can like hold my gumption, but by next Monday, there's so many things that have happened in my life that I really can evaluate, like whatever mindset I was in on Monday, did I really keep that? Like, is that still a consistent as strong of a burning frustration or as strong of a burning passion. I feel like sometimes I need a week, like truly.
Well, that's the joy of knowing yourself. Like if I wait too long, I'm gonna have all these little things going. I'm not gonna be able to articulate really what's happening. So knowing yourself and knowing how much time you need is critical. So my one day might be 7 days for you. It might be 3 days. It's not the time, it's the principle. Right. And so when we get away from the time, we look at the principle. And that's what I had to do. When anybody's talking, take the principle, not what they do. Because you can't emulate what they do, but you can take away a principle. So the principle is sleep on it.
Yeah, this is why I love talking to you. Truly, because you are so passionate. You're willing to have some of these tough conversations that sometimes we just need to have a healthy discussion and dialogue on. And you're full of these like little tips and tricks, one-liners. I'm such a fan. I love all this stuff.
Thanks.
I do want to make sure that our network gets to connect with you, but we also have some good news stories, some holidays. So what do you feel about getting into some holidays before we conclude our show here this morning?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, good morning, everyone. We've had such a good conversation so far. It is Tuesday, January 11th, and we have a few things that we have left for you this morning, including make sure you go connect with Traniece on Twitter because there is a lot more. Yes, there's a lot more of this discussion, right? Like all these things are just the initial moments that hopefully will connect us long term. If you don't end up connecting with our guests on the show, you're really missing out on continuing to grow your network full of just different perspectives and insights. So Traniece, I'm going to have you share your contact information at the end, but I do know it's on the screen. So if somebody's able to watch this, like if you're watching this over on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch versus just listening to it on Teach Better Podcast or Teach Better Talk Podcast, I just definitely want to make sure everybody has access to that. So that's super important. Traniece, are you a fan of celebrating random holidays?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are some weird holidays today. For instance, I know all of you were eager for this day. I mean, you've been waiting all year for this. It is National Milk Day. I'm not sure what that means for everybody, but go get a glass of milk. I don't think I've had a glass of milk in ages.
Does creamer count? Because I definitely put creamer in my coffee.
I think, yeah. I mean, like I would like milk's dairy. Does any dairy count today? Like, can I eat cheese to celebrate National Milk Day?
I think so. We're going to go with that.
I like that. This other holiday, which to be honest, I never thought would be fun, but if you are looking for a really silly activity to do with students today, it is Learn Your Name in Morse Code Day, which I don't know how that holiday was created, but like a little activity, put up the Morse code alphabet on your board or print out little sheets for students today and they can learn their name in Morse code. I've never done that before.
Huh. Okay.
You have a long name, Traniece. I think that you would have that would be a real commitment to learn how to spell your name out in Morse code. RAE is a little bit easier.
Yeah, that definitely is. I think I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna do that.
I love it. It's also National Arkansas Day. I don't know what that means. It's National Hug Day. Okay, fine.
I could do that one.
Yeah, why not? It's Poetry at Work Day. So if you're an administrator doing announcements later today, or if you're an educator that wants to bring a little poetry into your life, Poetry at Work Day. Who knew that was a big holiday? Have you ever had a pen pal?
I did.
Yeah, see, today is Secret Pen Pal Day. So maybe create a little pen pal. That could be fun for this week. And then last thing, I do want to give a shout out. There are so many people within our Teach Better network that love sketchnoting. And if you're not aware of sketchnoting, yes, see, Traniece, you love it. Tell us a little about what it is.
Oh my goodness. It's art in word form. I just love it. So my brain goes like this, right? And so it allows me to put those big pieces on my paper and I get to move through it. I've done this with my dissertation. My lit review got so much easier because I was able to organize it using art and using creativity because it's my own. It's not just pages and pages of notes. I actually go back and look at it because the brain it's something different to the brain. All those pages of notes, I was like, oh no, I can't go look at that. I never looked at it. Now, oh man, sketchnoting is the best. It's even one of the interventions that I put in when I'm talking to parents of kids who struggle. The first thing I ask is, does your kid like art? And they go, they do. And I say, okay, have you heard of sketchnoting? And then I pass them a YouTube clip and we start to implement the idea of what sketchnoting could look like for them in the classroom so that they can stay focused and they're doodling with a purpose.
Oh, I love this.
Doodling with a purpose.
I love doodling with a purpose. That's another good one-liner for this morning. I will say it is World Sketchnote Day today. So if you have not explored it, maybe today is your opportunity to not only introduce this in your own life, but introduce this to your students. It's not for everybody, but that's not the point. It's just a great opportunity to look at your quote unquote notes differently. I know a lot of our Teach Better community chooses to sketchnote. I've seen incredible sketch notes about some of our live segments, like 12-Hour Live. Brian Fennell always does a sketch note to kind of depict what the day looked like. We did just announce our 12-Hour Live date yesterday, so make sure you have that in your calendar, February 26th. That'll be so good. But anyway, today is World Sketchnoting Day, so please throw that on your to-do list today to explore that. That will be so funny. I do want to give a shout out. Brad Hughes in the comments right now is adding all these puns. He says, right. Draw on your own conclusions about it. I love that.
That's it. I love it.
I love it. You know, Traniece, the good news story today, typically when I grab good news stories, I go to a specific network, like a specific website that is only good news, because sometimes it's hard in the rigmarole of our news outlets to find like good news. Sometimes it's really negative. It's tough. I will tell you, I was scrolling through Facebook this morning, which is not typically where I would get my news. And this CNN article came up and it was too good not to talk about. I assume this article exists on many, many platforms. So please go look this up. But it is official as of yesterday that Maya Angelou will become the first Black woman to appear on a U.S. quarter as Treasury begins distribution. So this was just released. I hope so many of you saw this. But a new U.S. quarter featuring the late Maya Angelou went into circulation on Monday, the U.S. Mint announced, making the legendary poet and activist the first Black woman to ever appear on a coin. It goes into all the history, how this decision was made. For many of us, I mean, I personally have been following kind of how these decisions are made. I think this is so exciting that it actually came to fruition after so many people have shared their voice in the importance of this. And it kind of goes into also the circulation process of the US currency and also how some decisions were made of people that are currently featured and how that's being changed in some way. So just kind of exciting news, so relevant to our students as well. I think this is a really easy, news story to bring into our classrooms and our schools this week. So shout out, so exciting.
I definitely agree. I did see that article. I was like, what? And then I saw the cage bird. I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be legit. Let me go to the bank and get me some.
And don't you love, like, truly, and this is any currency. I know we have, friends that are tuning in from all over the world, especially for Daily Drop-In as they're catching the show either live or after the fact. And currency is so beautiful. It's its own kind of art, truly.
Yeah.
And I just love this new quarter design. It is so powerful. And to me, I just think it has so much meaning about so many important topics. So I'm thrilled to see that this is something that literally just went into our currency yesterday. So super exciting.
That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Traniece, would you mind sharing how people can stay in contact with you? I know that you've been able to share so many tidbits. I know some people might even want to reach out to you to help them process some of the work that we were able to talk about today. So would you mind sharing how people can stay in contact with you?
No problem. So you can contact me on Twitter at Brown Warrens. So it's both of my last names. And I'm very active. So I will respond. I'm a real person. If you tag me, I will respond. If you send me a DM, I will hit you back. Someone poured into me, and so I'm always willing to pour into anybody else because the world of education sometimes is rough and there's no one there. They see your light and they're intimidated by it. And so I've decided to create a platform where if you're trying to shine, I'm going to help you shine the best way that I can.
I love it. Yes. And especially as you all are considering how you're growing your professional learning network, It doesn't matter where you're growing the network, just choose to grow it. You have control over your news feed. You have control over who you connect with, and connect with people like Traniece who are positive. They believe in amplifying voices. They believe in discussing difficult topics so we can be better. Those are the type of people that I'm committed to fill my network with, and so many other people are as well. Traniece, if you don't mind, before we go, will you tell us a little bit about the type of people that you like to welcome into your network, just in case somebody might be new to Twitter, and while connecting with you is valuable, there's other people as well that they can choose to connect to?
Who I like to connect with?
Yeah, like how do you decide who you connect with on social media? How does that work for you?
Do our values align? So we don't have to look at it the same way, but is what I think important what you think is important? Because that's what's really important, right? I don't like groupthink. So if everyone thinks the same way I do, then I'm not growing. I do need people that's going to challenge the way that I think, because when you challenge me, I then go out and have to learn, why was I holding so tightly to that idea? So I'm really open to almost anybody. Unless you're like something about Bitcoin, then I'm like, no, thanks. I don't need any of that support. Thank you. But for the most part, I'm really open to all different types of ideas. So I really try to emulate what we teach in the classroom. You have to have multiple perspectives. So yeah, for me, my number one though is my professors, because they drop knowledge and I need to know what is going on. Dave is also amazing. He says some things that sometimes you're like, do I hit like and retweet on that? I don't know. I might have to tell him on the side, right? That's Dave. Yeah. Teach Better is always great. And I really like Jeff Gargis. Like, he is a leader that is not afraid to be transparent. And so because of him, I've learned that transparency and vulnerability is very, very important for the people that you serve. If you can't model what you're expecting, then don't expect your people to do the same thing. And Jeff is one of those people. He will tell you, this is what I have going on. This is how you get to where you're going to go. And that's really another reason why I will do anything for Teach Better, because I believe in his vision and his mission. It's important. You have to keep that in the forefront. And so having good people around you, most definitely.
So many good tips and tricks. I so appreciate you waking up so stinking early to join us, Traniece. I love every conversation I've had with you, and I so appreciate all the work that you do. And I want to encourage everybody in our network, please go connect with Traniece. And there's so much still for us to do together. So please let us know if we can do anything for you. I do want to give a really quick note, because I'm going to forget until the very, very end. But I did remember we are on a last call for 2 big things. So if you have not shown up in your email recently, here's my reminders to you. First and foremost, 12-hour live date has been announced. So please make sure you write down February 26th, 8 a.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern is officially the time where we're going to be doing that. So write that down. Number 2, last call. If you are somebody eager to be part of the Edupreneur Mastermind group, if you're pursuing a side gig or have some sort of hobby that you want to come to more of an official capacity in business, this could be the group for you. We had 3 spots open. I don't think all 3 are filled yet, but that is Thursdays. I believe it's at 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern. But that you can go get more information on at teachbetter.com/Edupreneur Mastermind. And then last but not least, before I forget, we have a grid webinar that's going on Friday. I think registration closes like ASAP. So if you have not registered for that free webinar, truly to get started in mastery learning, that will be a really special group that will get to dive into the first 5 steps of mastery learning. And then we have a little bit of a surprise for you after the fact. So go register for that. That's at teachbetter.com/grid webinar. And that is on Friday. So again, these are both last calls. But Traniece, thank you again for joining us. We are going to head out here. Yes. And for everybody else, have a wonderful Tuesday. I mean, holy cow. Yes. Please go enjoy finishing your coffee and having the best January 11th that we've ever had. So thanks so much, friends.
Thank you. Bye.